Hello and welcome to the channel of Samu Oren. All texts can be found on the website www.samuoran.com. Today's video is titled, Watchful Thoughts about the Revelation of Spiritual and Religious Forces During the Pandemic. At the beginning of my remarks, I would like to offer the following quote from Francisco de Goya. When reason falls asleep, the demons awaken. I will come back to this quote, because it reveals a fundamental truth. With the start of the pandemic and the measures announced and their promising wound healing to put an end to evil, I wondered whose spirit children are at work. Aside from the strange, uniform media manipulation, the media virus machine, and the dubious professional pronouncements that defied any principle, I would have expected that at least the majority of the educated people are asking serious questions. Had they all already forgotten the principles of scientific work? Thesis, antithesis and synthesis. There were many theses from politicians and so-called experts. There were also antitheses of serious scientists, spiritually awake people and people connected to God, but they were silenced and so there was no synthesis. This fact alone would have been enough from a human point of view, every responsible person must notice. But at the latest people should have woken up to the so-called measures to protect the population. To a sane person with common sense, there is no reason to take part in this promised nonsense of privileges, like rewards, going out to eat, freedom of movement, or keeping a job. I assumed that the times of subjection and obedience to authority in this country and in Europe would be over. Anyone who considers personal freedom as goods that can be acquired, earned or bought, have all the basic features of democracy and justice lost. This is the sober assessment of what is happening on a human level. There may possibly be a relieving factor, especially for the Germans, because the world-renowned brain researcher Ernst Puppel describes. After intensive scientific studies about the Germans, he stated that many people are too uncritical of their views, joining others and not questioning things sufficiently. Quote, "We rely on each other too much. We want people to think for us. We readily agree with opinions that others already have preformed. We live in self-inflicted immaturity." He continues, "I estimate that only around 10% of people think for themselves and take their life in their own hands. However, I suspect that there has always been something like a 90-10 rule here. What is new, however, is the influence of digital media. This is the digital version of the Pied Piper of Hamelin. Orienting yourself towards others and not questioning things is so comfortable. To uncritically agree with what others have already said is dangerous." Source, Dare to Think by Ernst Puppel and Beatrice Wagner. To get to the point, society in this country suffers from a collective stupidity of convenience, says the political scientist Thomas Clichy. The opposite of this is, responsible citizens inform themselves comprehensively, especially when it comes to the topics of basic democratic rights, self-determination, shared responsibility, health care and protection. Media should be helpful, but in the majority of cases they spread false reports themselves or suppress scientific findings and incite a propaganda climate of discrimination against woke thinkers and warning voices. This is where it hits Francisco de Goya's saying, "When reason falls asleep, the demons awaken." I would like to add Goya's true sentence, "Where reason sleeps, people become playthings of these demonic forces and consequently become accomplices." Because when lies and deceit, injustice and arbitrariness prevail and you are defenseless against this situation, and if you then surrender, you become a part of these terrible acts. And unfortunately, one such behavior, especially among the Germans, is not a unique occurrence in their history. Desmond Tutu's sentence probably applies here: "We learn from history that we do not learn from history." Now I would like to turn to the actual topic of watchful thoughts about the revelation of spiritual and religious forces during the pandemic. Difficult situations, be it in society or in personal life, often present one excellent basis for recognizing and separating wheat from chaff. The international pandemic hysteria offered a truly suitable field of testing, research and decision-making. The basis for this was not only observations of the behavior of politicians and the media and their effects on the population, but also social activism organizations, religious institutions and their spokesmen. For example, I have looked at the exactly behavior of various religious and supposedly spiritual groups or people who believe they are very close to God in a special way. For this I have made the following written request to various persons who embody a certain religious or spiritual authority: should I get vaccinated? I added that it is very important for me to be in God's will, but being unsure in my decision. I put this simple question to the following organizations or various representatives: Catholic clergy, evangelical clergy, various free church pastors, several well-known Jewish rabbis, 2 Islamic clergy, 3 Buddhist monks from different European countries, so-called spiritual healers and healers who boast a certain spirituality, and 4 shamans from different countries. I finally did this out of the deep conviction that is well summarized in Micah 6:8. He has made known to you, O man, what is good, and what the Lord requires of you is only, keep righteousness, practice love, and allow yourself to be humbly changed by your God. The conclusion of my answers was extremely sobering, and even more frightening how fervently some intellectual representatives wanted to encourage me to take this dangerous step. Here are some short quotes. 1. Christian answers: it is God's will, it is an act of charity, we must be obedient to the authorities, the Holy Spirit has confirmed the accuracy, you should trust more in Jesus. Do not close up from the community of believers. 2. From the Islamic side it was relatively unanimous, it's all halal, so it's allowed and therefore no problem. 3. From the Jewish side it was much more nuanced. One rabbi wrote to me, yes, you have to do that, everything is kosher. Another said, it's your decision, check carefully, and another said very clearly, no, that is the work of demons, do not sell your soul to these dark forces. 4. The answers from the Buddhist side were very nice, meaning everything and nothing. No one saves us, except ourselves. Nobody can and nobody is allowed to do that. We have to go the way ourselves. Learn to let go. That is the key to happiness. One should not seek peace outside, only within oneself. He who has found inner silence does not reach for anything and does not reject anything. I was even more wounded by the answers from so-called spiritual healers to alternative practitioners. You'll only get in trouble if you don't do it. The vaccination is safe. If we don't do it, then we have to close our practice. The great God has said it's not a problem. What kind of question is that? The other vaccinations were also safe. In which one ages you live? There are still the 4 shamans left, and here the answer was always the same. No, because there are very dark forces at work. Some of the answers inevitably made me think of the prophet Yeshayahu, who once said, because this people draws near to me with their mouth and honors me with their lips, while they keep their hearts away from me and their fear of me is only learned if it is the commandment of men. Behold, I also want to deal with this people in a wondrous, even extremely wondrous and astonishing way in the future. And the wisdom of his wise men shall come to nothing, and the understanding of those who understand him shall be lost. And, we have made a covenant with death and a contract with hell. The flooding scourge, when it breaks in, will not come to us, because we have made deceit our refuge and sheltered ourselves in lies. Finally, Rabbi Jeshua from Nazareth is quoted, either plant a good tree, and the fruit will come good, or plant a tree that is rotten, the fruit becomes rotten. Because you can recognize the tree by its fruit. You breeds of vipers, how can you speak good things while you are evil? When the heart is full, the mouth overflows. A good man produces good things from the good treasure of his heart, and an evil man brings forth evil from his evil treasure. But I say to you that men must give an account at the last judgment for every useless word they have spoken. By your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. When a religion constantly betrays its own values and principles in favor of political ideological circumstances, it becomes untrustworthy. This tramples on its ethical and moral standards with its own feet. Furthermore, these organizations obviously close their ears to God's concerns. Nothing new in the church history of the Catholic and Protestant churches. They obviously don't want to learn anything from their own history, and so they are and remain repeat offenders and servants of dark demonic forces. This doesn't surprise me. What amazes me, however, are the so-called charismatic free churches, the majority of which kept their ears closed and willingly opened themselves up to the desires of dark powers and also promoted them. Of course, biblically based with the general excuse of obedience to the authorities. Of course, they tend to forget to examine everything seriously, critically and spiritually, and ultimately to listen more to God than to people. What to think of such spiritually gifted people is shown more than clearly by their fruits. What is even worse, however, is that truly awake people, who were obviously still in control of their minds and, above all, their spiritual abilities, were excluded and demonized by their so-called fellow brothers and sisters. This is ultimately the final proof of whose dark spirit prevails in such communities. They are the ones who have made a covenant with death and a contract with hell. Of course, all those Christians who resist the adversary despite his promises are worthy of praise. The following story applies to them. Once the devil came to a woman and said, "If you take my seed and bear it, give birth to a child, then I will give you a kingdom of your choice, it will be your paradise." Honest, asked that woman, "Would you really do that, devil, give me a kingdom of my choosing?" "Yes, I give you my word, woman." "Well," said the woman, "then so be it. I desire the kingdom of heaven, God, and now let us take action." Then the devil said angrily, "I offer you the pleasures of happiness and power, the moment of chosen existence and dominion over many people. Woman, you ask something of me, I cannot give it to you, because I can only give you what is mine." "That's what I thought," said the woman, "you own nothing and everything belongs to me, and this is my life. It will never be yours, it cannot be had by any kingdom in this world." I also found the Jewish reactions astonishing. A rabbi who presents himself as particularly charismatic demands that I go for the vaccination, while a very orthodox rabbi urges me to be careful without making it easier for me to make a decision, and a Kabbalistic rabbi calls the child by its name and therefore advises me against it. Here, too, the wheat emerged from the chaff. The fact that the Buddhist monks answered me with sayings of Buddha showed me that they do not want to enter into confrontation with a personal opinion on sensitive topics. Only one monk made his attitude clear through his quote, "No one saves us except ourselves. No one can and no one is allowed to do that. We have to go the way ourselves." Respect for this statement, which also shows a lot of wisdom. What was very shocking to me was the multitude of answers from so-called spiritual people. Here I would like to avoid going into more detail about the anxiety and mental abysses. However, the answers from the shamans and real healers were very pleasing. Someone else wrote to me, "Good things can never come from lies and violence." He quoted Gandhi. The pandemic situation had at least one good thing: it became clear who was chaff and who was wheat. It became clear who has an open ear for God's directions and who doesn't. Whenever dark times begin, the few real luminaries of the knowledge of God appear, regardless of religion or other spiritual direction. And even those who think they have no relationship with divinities and only follow their reason and intuition, they are closer to God's will for salvation for us humans than the many seducers in religious or spiritual organizations. You will recognize them by their fruits. He has made known to you, O man, what is good, and what the Lord requires of you is only, keep your righteousness, practice love and allow yourself to be humbly changed by your God. Micah 6:8. If you like the content of the video, like and share this video and help spread the word about this important topic. If you would like to support my work, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you and be blessed.